Did you hear that?
I did. I did. That's letting you know that we're recording so that I
Yep.
can record. Patty. All right, welcome, Patty. All right. Now, we are in Genesis 18. And some things get kind of interesting in Genesis. We left Abraham back after having everyone circumcised. So the introduction of that ritual to show faithfulness, to show covenant. So that was an interesting place where we left off. That is where we left off, right? Okay, I want to make sure that's what I had down. All right, now the Lord appeared to Abraham again in the oaks of Mamre. Now this is when they say a place, it's usually because there's significance in the place. And this is one of those. This is the place where Abraham went before he took off to Egypt. So he came back, he's setting up his tent. This is where he built altars. This is where he frequently meets with the Lord. This is in fact where he buys land and where he will be buried and Sarah will be buried. And even actually Isaac will come back and be buried here. So this is home base for Abraham. So he's sitting there in his tent and he lifts up his eyes and three men start to walk towards him. And he immediately knows that these three men are the Lord and the angels. And he bows down to them and he says, "My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, please do not pass by your servant." And of course they say that they would stay and refresh themselves. Now, what do you think about the fact that he's sitting there? So just imagine yourselves on a beautiful spring day, sitting on your porch, and the Lord and a couple angels walk up. That's in essence what has happened here. And the point is, it may have happened, and you just don't even know it, but Abraham knew it. Hospitality, and this will come out as we go, if we get as far as I hope that we will tonight. Hospitality is incredibly critical in this culture. It is more important to be hospitable to people who come than to take care of your own family. Hospitality, because again, there's not the independence in this culture that we have today. There's no, Hotel 6 or Holiday Inn or anything like that. There's no Howard Johnson's. There's no McDonald's. Where did Howard Johnson's come from? But, so people travel, but when they travel, they have to depend on somebody being willing to take them in. So hospitality is critical. And so these three gentlemen and the Lord agree to it. And Abraham hurries to Sarah in the tent and says, get to work, knead some flour. He goes out, Abraham himself, he doesn't get his servants. Now, by this point, he's a wealthy man. So he doesn't get his servants to do this. He goes to the field and he gets the choicest calf and he has his servants prepare it, but he's the one who picked it. So, again, if someone comes in, are you going to start kneading bread from scratch and flour? Are you going to go out to the field and kill a calf and prepare it? How long did these people stay?
That's what I wondered.
Yeah.
They were really hungry by the time he did all that.
Exactly. Which is going to be part of my sermon next week, because we're going to talk about fasting. When you think about preparing for somebody, you're not just talking about opening up a fridge and, hey, well, I got this and this. This is, take it from the hoof, knead it from the flour. But he took curds and milk, and he took the calf and he prepared it all. And they were sitting under the tree and they were eating. They were gracious. And they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And Abraham says, "Behold, she's in the tent." Now, I don't see anywhere, he could have, but I don't see anywhere where he said, "My wife, Sarah." So they knew her already. But then, of course, this is the Lord and the angels, right? We wouldn't expect anything less, and she's listening in, okay, as we have a tendency to do. I'm very guilty of it myself. So she's listening in, and he says she's in the tent. And so this angel says to her, the Lord says to him, "I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." Now, in the hang on to this time frame, okay? Because how long is a pregnancy? 9 months. And she's not pregnant yet, okay? And there's a whole lot that's going to happen in this year's time, a whole lot, okay? So because this angel said, behold, a year from now, she's going to have a son. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age, and Sarah was past childbearing. Now, what that actually means, there's actually this word put together, there's actually two different words in Hebrew, which actually meant she wasn't just past childbearing, she was past childbearing. She is no longer in the way of the woman, if you would understand what I mean by that. She is past childbearing. And so she laughs, wouldn't you? I mean, it would essentially be like God looking at me and saying, yeah, Linda's going to have a baby. And I would laugh and I'd also cry. But because if it was the Lord saying it, I'm like, But Sarah laughed to herself, saying, again, she's listening in. She didn't laugh at them. She's listening in. So they, she thinks she's safe, right? After I've become old, shall have the pleasure, my Lord, of being old, and shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? Which by that framing kind of also leads us to understand that maybe they weren't only past childbearing, they were past the things that make to childbearing. Okay, so she's laughing about the whole thing. But the Lord said to Abram, what? Sarah laughed, saying, shall I indeed bear a child when I am so old? Is anything too difficult for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you. At this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. So, okay, when the Lord says something twice, it's going to be. When Jesus says truly, truly. And when the Lord says something twice. So 1 year from this time period, she's going to have a son.
My Bible says in the spring. It doesn't say 1 year. It doesn't give a time piece, but it does say in the spring. It says that several times.
Okay. Go to the beginning of 18. Does your Bible translation give any indication of what time of the year this takes place? Okay.
So this is the heat of the day. That's
Yeah,
all.
mine just says the heat of the day too. Okay, so there's an interesting translation. Either way, the spring can't be much more than, if they're sitting there in the heat of the day, it would have to be spring.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be winter, you wouldn't think.
No.
Or even if it was, you're still not talking. Well, anyway, it's basically the same thing.
I just think it's interesting that my Bible doesn't say a year.
Yeah, what translation do you have?
It's the Revised Standard Version.
Yep. This is the interesting thing, when people ask me about Bibles.
Yeah.
They're also different. There are some things I like, for some things also why I have so many of them. Because when I see one thing, I'll go to another, and I'll go to another, and I'll go to another. Don't ask Jack about them.
Mine just says I will sure return to you in due season, and I have RSV version, or that's what I got too.
You can, yeah, you do see. So it's some period of time, relatively somewhere around a year. And Sarah denied it, however, saying, I did not laugh, but she was afraid. And he said, no, you did laugh. Now, the thing is, okay, this exchange, she's not there. She's not supposed to be there. She's in the tent and she's talking to herself. So it's like he calling from outside the tent saying, you're laughing. I didn't laugh. Yes, you laughed. I don't know. Then the men rose up from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham was walking with them to send them off. Right there, walking with them. That's another cultural thing. Okay. I kind of think of it as our Southern thing, and I do it. I don't know whether you guys do, but when I've had company, I don't just let them walk out the door. I walk to the car with them.
Mhm.
Okay. It's essentially the same thing. It's very cultural. You go a certain journey with them to see them on their way. But, it's interesting that, that he did that. Now, again, Who is this that visited him?
God.
God.
And
Which person of the Godhead?
I was. Which person died?
Which person of the Godhead?
The Lord.
Just is the Lord.
This is the Lord. Can we see God face to face?
No,
Because the Bible says repeatedly that
no one.
humanity cannot see him face to face.
Mhm.
The only one who came closest to it was Moses. This is, most theologians would say, this is Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still God, it's still the Lord. It's just
Physical
the
manifestation.
human manifestation of the Lord. Which also goes back to the understanding of, to get back to the understanding of the Trinity with God totally spirit. Jesus was, in a way, always human. Even before he was born of Mary, he was the human element. And of course, Holy Spirit is spirit. God is spirit, but God is everything because God is encompassing spirit and humanity, which then speaks to some of the things I've talked to you guys about earlier on about the council, about the role of humanity. You know, to think that the Godhead, part of the Godhead was always willing to take on human form, human nature. So it's just, again, I don't want to raise humanity up too high. That gets into bad heresy, but it does speak to our role. You know, that there's a part of the Godhead that is deemed human.
Wonder if he looked the same there as he did when he was crucified.
Well, not when he was
Crucified when
crucified,
he was on
but
earth.
when he was, yeah, was it?
I wonder,
I,
I don't know, not necessarily.
Yeah, there's that's gonna have to be one of the questions on our list.
Yeah.
My guess would be, it would be the post-resurrection Jesus. Because that's when he shed his fleshly humanity for his divine humanity. Does that make sense? I don't want to say those words heretically. But he, you know, he was still physical body, just like he was here. He was sitting down eating, so were the angels, but he wasn't the same Jesus that was born of Mary. You know what I mean? Y'all with me? Am I confusing anybody? Confusing me?
In my mind, he could be any form. I mean, he could look like anything God wants. I mean,
He could, but I think Jesus has a form. Jesus, just like Vicky has a form, you know, when we meet again in heaven, we're gonna look at each other, we're gonna know each other, okay? Jesus has a form. And I don't think his resurrected form was all that different from his human form, but we know that people did not recognize him. We know that, you know, Mary Magdalene, the women did not recognize him at first. We know that the disciples on the road to Emmaus did not recognize him at first. He was different enough that they did not at first. Of course, if you think someone's dead, you know, you might say, gosh, it looks a whole lot like.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but I think there was enough difference that to me, when I think of this Jesus coming in this form, I think of him, and again, I could be wrong, but because this is just me, I think of him as the post-resurrection Jesus, which is his true form. It's basically the same form that we have here, is what I think of.
Jesus had a soul,
Eternal soul.
eternal soul.
Did the other men that was with him, I mean, if they were angels, did they look like angels or did they look like people? I mean, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and nobody really has a good answer for it. Because let's put that question on the table and let's go a little bit farther and let's talk about it. Okay?
Because
I-
Abraham knew it was the Lord.
Abraham knew it was the Lord. And I think Abraham knew that it was angels too. So let's go a little bit farther and let's pick that up again. Now, they're heading towards Sodom and Gomorrah. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and in him all the nations of the earth will be blessed. For I have chosen him in order that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, in order that the Lord may bring upon Abraham what he has spoken about him. Okay, now, God is in effect talking to God. So don't feel bad when you talk to yourself. Which we're not God. He probably got a better answer than we would give ourselves. But God is talking to God, and he's not really asking himself a question, although it looks like it. Should I tell him? Because in fact, in my Bible, it does come with a question mark at the very, very end. God knows the answer to it. What God is doing here for the author to write is to explain why all of this takes place, okay? Does God owe Abraham an explanation about why he's going to go to Sodom and Gomorrah? No, he doesn't owe him an explanation, just like God does not owe us an explanation for anything that God does in the world. However, Abraham is going to be the father of great nations, and he is going to be the father of faith, and he is going to be given the instructions which he's supposed to give to his children and down the line to be faithful so that Sodom and Gomorrahs won't happen. So if you are going to try and teach a child to not do what these children are doing, what's the best way to show them? Show them the judgment. Show them the judgment that's about to fall on them. So that's really, in effect, what God is doing. God is revealing the plan because of who Abraham is and what he's destined to be. I want you to see firsthand my thinking about why I'm doing this to Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? Of course, we're going to find out too. So picking up in verse 20, and the Lord said, the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is exceedingly great. I will go down now and see if they have done entirely according to its outcry, which has come to me, and if not, I will know.
And where did this outcry come from?
Okay, very good question. Okay. The point is, does God know already what's going on in Sodom and Gomorrah? Yes. But the reassurance is also that God is not just relying on the outcry. He's not going to just stay on the throne, and although he can know and see, he's going to come down and be, are you guys really going to keep doing this? Is this really what you want? So that should be the assurance. He's not going to depend on the outcry. What was crying out? The very earth was crying out. Angels were crying out. Again, this is a supernatural understanding. The angels are the ones who are going down there. The angels, some people believe we've got our own guardian angel. Okay, so all of the guardian angels over everything that's going on is crying out to God. God, you've got to fix this. They are out of control. The earth again itself, this earth is a living, breathing thing. It communicates with God. So everything is the outcry is so huge that God's going to come down himself, because the punishment he's about to dole out, it's a pretty big punishment. So God's not going to do it willy-nilly. That makes sense? Okay. Then the men turned away from there and went down towards Sodom, while Abraham was still standing before the Lord. So the angels start walking towards Sodom and Gomorrah to do the work of the Lord, and the Lord is left behind with Abraham. And Abraham came near. And one of you might, because mine gets a little vowy and wilty. So if you want me to stop and have one of you guys read your versions, we can. And Abraham came near and said, wilt thou indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Now, is Abraham questioning God? Yeah. Is this the kind of questioning that God would take offense at?
No, no.
Why not?
He's more, it's like more of a concern question. I think that he might be concerned about, Abraham might be concerned, he's kind of, not, well, he may have concern for the people, but some of them might not need to be destroyed.
Right,
He's showing compassion.
Yeah.
exactly,
That.
exactly. It's two things here, okay? Abraham is not just looking towards Abraham. Abraham is compassionate, but he's also lifting up to God. This is almost a prayer in effect, because what is prayer? Prayer is communication with God. Abraham just happened to have the privilege of having God sitting right next to him in a form that he can see. When we pray, we have God next to us. Normally, we can't see him. Not normally. So in a way, Abraham is almost lifting up like the Psalms. If you ever have a Lectico Divino type prayer where you pray the Psalms, he is lifting up to God his nature. Okay? Abraham is compassionate for the people, but he's also saying, you're righteous. You don't wipe away the righteous with the wicked. You don't do that. That's not who you are. So it's kind of like reminding God of who God is. And it is a very effective prayer because it shows that he knows God. Okay? Now it in effect, it's not sitting back in ignorance saying like, you good, God, knock him out, knock him out. But God, you are so compassionate. Are you really going to do this? Even if there are some righteous people down there, are you really going to do this? He knew God well enough to know. And that's how he can ask that question, because again, it's not coming from a critical spirit. It's coming from a compassionate spirit and a spirit of knowing who God is. And he goes on. Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou indeed sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous who are in it? Now listen to this. Far be it from thee to do such a thing, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly? Again, God's not going to take offense because, again, you have to know the spirit. I don't believe Abraham is saying this critically. He's saying it, saying, you're a just person. You deal justly. So what about if you find this? Are you really going to do this? There's also another word that this is a beginning of an introduction to, a certain kind of prayer. So quiz for the day. What kind of prayer is this?
Intercessory prayer.
Intercessory prayer. What is intercessory prayer?
Praying for someone lifting someone else up.
It's actually standing in the gap. Okay. Now, so you imagine Abraham and the Lord are standing there on a hill overlooking Sodom and Gomorrah. They can see the angels walking down there. Does Sodom and Gomorrah know what's happening? No, they haven't got the foggiest idea of what's about to take place. So there is a righteous man, Abraham, which is going to be an interesting twist with what comes up next. A righteous man standing with the Lord, intercessing, standing between the gap, okay? He is bargaining with the Lord for those people who are down there. That's what intercessory prayer is. So just think about that as we start to pray for the Josephs of the world and the Jodies of the world. And I don't know if I lift up Glenn to the world, all of these people. That's what this is all about. So the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare the whole place on their account. Just 50 righteous people, which, I don't know. So, Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't that big. It was an ancient culture. So that's still a pretty good chunk of people. Okay. And Abraham answered, this is where it gets fun. Abraham answered, now behold, I have ventured to speak to the Lord, although I am but dust and ashes. He's humble. I mean, this isn't arrogant talk. This is truly the way that we should go before the Lord, knowing who we are, knowing who you are. You are the just ruler, judge of the world. And who am I? I'm the dust. You could zap me at any moment and I become the dust again. Suppose the 50 righteous are lacking 5. Wilt thou destroy the whole city because of 5? And God said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. And he spoke to him yet again and said, suppose 40 are found there. And he said, I will not do it on account of 40. Then he said, oh, may I speak to the Lord, may the Lord not be angry, and shall I speak? Suppose 30 are there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. He's really treading, isn't he? And he said, now behold, I have ventured to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there. And he said, I will not destroy it on the account of 20. Then he said, oh, my Lord, not be angry, and I shall speak only this once. Suppose 10 are found there. And he said, I will not destroy it on account of the 10. And as soon as he had finished speaking to Abraham, the Lord departed, and Abraham returned to his place. So we can bargain with God from a place of absolute and utter humility into his absolute and utter righteousness. But Abraham stopped too soon, didn't he? What if he had gone down? What if he had said 5? What if he had said 1? What if he had stayed in intercession just a little bit longer? Okay, ladies, speaking mostly to ladies, because we're the ones who are usually lifting up our waywards. Don't give up. Don't give up at 10. Keep pushing.
It's a good lesson.
Keep pushing.
Do you think also he might be thinking about Lot? Didn't Lot and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Getting it down, he might would have been better for the Lord stopped at 15.
Well, yeah,
You don't know.
he was thinking about Lot, but it's one of those things. He knew Lot was down there. So you think about it, could he have stopped at 10 because he figured, well, Lot's probably got 10 family members by now, so I'm good. I mean, that's a possibility. But we also know that if you have complete and utter trust in God, which we'll find out in just a little bit, Abraham had to have, then he had to know that God would save Lot no matter what. So most theologians believe it is more an utter compassion for everybody,
everybody, yeah.
not just for Lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Lot had to be in his mind, because look at what happens. Okay, now the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. Now, do you remember the scene where Abraham had the property because he was given the promise, and Abraham was fighting, or the herdsmen of Abraham were fighting with the herdsmen of Lot, and Abraham said, choose where you want. You go your way, I'll go my way. You have the choice of it. And what did Lot choose?
So,
Towards the direction
Yeah.
of Sodom. Okay. Lot continued to compromise his belief. He first started by looking at the glitter of his eyes. We said it that night, the lust of the eyes. It's one of the temptations that was given to Jesus. Lust of the eyes. He was lusting after what he saw in the valley, lusting after what he saw at the city. So it wasn't enough just to be in the valley. It wasn't just enough to be in the city, because remember, not long ago, he got stolen. Him and all his family and everybody got stolen. And Abraham had to go fight and bring them back, okay? What does it mean that he was sitting at the gate? What do you know what that means in that culture? Essentially means he was sitting at City Hall. He was one of the leaders of Sodom. He was sitting at the gate where the men of righteousness are supposed to sit. They're the ones who bring judgment. Okay, so think about that. Just hold that in your mind with what we're about to read. Okay, because he had theoretically the ability to stop this. He was one of the leaders. Okay? Now the two angels came to him, he was sitting at the gate, and when Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. And he said, now behold my lords. The lords is in lowercase. It is not in uppercase. It is the word, when you look up the translation, it means master. Okay? It's a very good chance that Lot really did not understand who these people really were. Okay? Because again, hospitality. These are strangers coming in, and I don't know what angels wear, but I would imagine they are fairly well attired. Okay? So there's a very good chance he did not know these were angels of the Lord. But he still invites them. Don't turn aside. Come to my house. I will give you hospitality. But the angel said, no, we will spend the night in the square. Okay. So we're going to go to town hall, the center of it, and we're going to just hang out there, see what's going on. Yet Lot urged them strongly to turn aside and enter his house. And he prepared a feast for them and baked unleavened bread, and they all ate. So they gave in to his hospitality. Now look what happens. Okay. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, both young and old, all the people from every quarter, and called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may have relations with them. Now, what other verses? What does it say in some of your other verses?
That we may know them.
Yeah, I know them.
Have sex with them.
Have sex with them, yours
Have
is plural.
sex with him.
Okay, yeah. So same thing, knowing them, having sex with them, having relations with them.
Mhm.
Now this is where it gets really bad. But Lot went out to them in the doorway and shut the door behind them. And he said, please, my brothers, do not act wickedly. Behold, I have two daughters who have not had relations with man. Please let me bring them out to you. Do with them whatever you like. Only do nothing to these men, inasmuch as they've come under the shelter of my roof. Now, if Abraham had gotten God down to one righteous person, would he have found one? At least not as far as the man, would we have?
Maybe the two virgin daughters.
Maybe, but that's exactly, maybe the two virgin daughters. Actually, we'll go in a little bit and find out, no. Okay, no. But, yeah, I mean, we do have to understand the cultural context, okay? Women were nothing back then, they were possessions, and hospitality to someone who you consider to be a lord, not lord as in lord, but even lord as in a master, okay? That's how critical hospitality was, that you would sacrifice your daughter. And if you go on and read, further into the Old Testament, there are several other cases similar.
But God would not condone that.
God does not and did not condone that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So this is a horrible thing that Abraham did.
I won't never forget, I don't know why I remember it, but I remember it when we were going to have another Bible class and Carolyn Minnick was in there. We got to that part, she had a lot to say about that.
Well, we all should. Again, just because it's in the Bible does not mean that it's the way God wants people to act, okay? Unless God says thou shalt or thou shalt not,
Yeah.
okay? But they said, the men outside after Lot said, take my daughters, stand aside. Furthermore, they said, this one came in as an alien already. He is acting like a judge. Now we will treat you worse than them. So they pressed hard against Lot and came near to break the door. So, basically Lot was being called out by the people. You're not from here. You're an outsider. You're taking your place as a judge. So I'm going to do to you too what I was going to do to them. Okay. But the men the angels reach out their hands and brought Lot into the house and shut the door. And they struck the men outside with blindness, so they couldn't even find the door, and they wandered away. And that's when the men tell Lot, who else is here? Who do you have here? Who is your family? Get your daughters, get your son-in-laws, get your people, get out. The outcry has become so great before the Lord that the Lord has sent us to destroy this place. There's definitely not 10 people here who are righteous. Now, interesting what happens next, because he has two daughters who are married in the sense that they are promised to be betrothed. Okay, so in the way, Lot considers these men son-in-laws. And Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who were to marry his daughters and said, "Up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city." But he appeared to his sons-in-law to be jesting. Now, what do you think? Where does that come from? What does that tell us?
Didn't believe in the Lord.
Right, right. But what does that tell us about Lot and his witness? I mean, Lot believed in the Lord. Lot traveled with Abraham and went all those places and knew the Lord. I mean, Lot is being willing to follow these men, okay. I'm kind of figuring you're probably more than just masters. You probably know what's going on here. But he had so compromised his witness.
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't know what he believed in, or they didn't see it.
Exactly, the people. So think about Jonah. Think about Jonah landing in Nineveh and walking through Nineveh and saying, 40 days, you're going to be destroyed. And what happened? The people believed because Jonah had a witness. Here is Lot living in that place. And he has so compromised his witness by the lust of the eyes of what they had, and actually taking a place of authority in judging and not living into his faith, that when the judgment came, even his own family did not believe him.
He should have got out as soon as he got there when he saw if that place was all that evil, he should have moved somewhere else.
He really compromised
Yeah.
to take on that
Mm.
role.
If he was gonna fall in with him, I mean, he should have.
That's right.
Backwards.
So think about our role in our world today. Okay.
Mm.
Mhm.
Our witness can get compromised by the way we live our life, so that if we want to say the word of the Lord, are people going to take us seriously?
Not if your actions don't show it.
That's right.
Exactly. I before I was a pastor, I did everything at the church. I was running away from God, so I did everything at the church, because that'll make God happy if I do everything. So we had a new pastor come to the church, and I invited him over for dinner. That's what you do when you're a leader in the church. You invite him over for dinner. So I invited him over for dinner, and I said, can I get you something to drink? I had, water and tea and all these things. He says, "Yeah, you got a bourbon?" And I said, "Yeah, what would you like to drink?" He says, "I really want a bourbon." I ain't got it. So I'm sorry, you can have tea or water. What did that do to his witness? He didn't know me from Adam. Again, okay, I'm not trying to make a judgment on anyone if they have a drink. I'm not doing that. What I am saying is that a pastor walked into somebody's house, a new pastor, a new person. He didn't know me from Adam. I could have been an alcoholic, and that's what he asked for. The witness that you placed, and that stuck with me. I mean, here I am,
Yeah.
30 years later, still talking about it.
If you had offered it, it would have been different, but you didn't offer it.
Yeah.
I didn't think, I didn't say it wasn't, I just said, "Do you want something to drink?" And so, no, I didn't say, "Do you want something non-alcoholic to drink?" Because
Yeah.
You didn't
you-
think
know,
about
it's
You
it.
didn't say I have coffee, tea, or water.
I should have done that. I should have said, "Do you want coffee, tea, water, milk?" But I didn't. You're right, Vicky. I just said, "Do you want something to drink?" So he stated his preference. He wanted a bourbon, and I didn't have it. So I was not very hospitable.
That's what drink meant to him.
But that's what
Yeah.
drink meant to him, yeah. So again, it's, our witness, again, if we act one way on Sunday, that we don't act Monday through Friday. If we want to talk to our people who are with us Monday through Friday about something in the church, they're gonna be like, "Yeah, that church has done you a lot of good." Right?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's how that works.
That's why God writes all of these things. I also want to bring up something else. Okay? God and the angels were going to Sodom and Gomorrah to destroy it. Why was Lot saved? Did Lot show any righteousness? Why was he saved?
I had something else he wanted him to do. Well, later on, I mean, I don't
Because of Abraham.
That was the point I was getting to, okay? It's hinted at and talked about in several places in the Bible when it starts talking about, women and divorcing and all that, the yoke, you're supposed to be equally yoked. The best thing that you can do before you get married is try and find someone who is equally yoked with you. But if you get converted afterwards, your conversion, if you can make it through the relationship, can save somebody. Because Lot was saved because of Abraham's faithfulness. The salvation was brought to Lot and would have been to his wife if she hadn't turned around, and to the two daughters simply because of their relationship to Abraham. So it's very important, again, our witness and our surrounding our family, because it really, 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 really makes a difference. See, all of this, we're only in chapter 19 of Genesis. When morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Up, take your wife, your daughters who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city." But he hesitated. He hesitated. If an angel of the Lord tells you to get up and get out of there, why are you hesitating? Okay? So the men seized his hand and the hands of his wife and the hands of his two daughters, for the compassion of the Lord was upon him, and they brought him out and they put him outside the city, and they said, "Go to the mountains, escape for your life, get out of here." And guess what? Lot still argues, "I want to go all the way to the mountains. Can I just settle in that little town over there, that little town called Zoar, wasn't it?" Yeah. Yeah, let me flee. Let me flee to that little town, Zoar, Zoar. And so the angels say, "Fine, hurry up, get out there, go to Zoar. I won't destroy that city either." And the sun had risen over the earth when Lot came to Zoar. So basically, the angels had woken them up before the sun had really risen. And the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But his wife from behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Now, they have dug up something that archaeologically looks like Sodom and Gomorrah. They have found stuff that looks like this really happened. And it's really not all that. Science could explain it, meteorites and all those type things, So if it happened today, we could say, it wasn't of God. But I wouldn't, but people could. But they have found stuff that shows, and she turned to a pillar of salt. And it's interesting that Jesus actually talks about this. Luke talks about this in Luke. You don't have to turn to it. I'll read it to you. Luke 17:32. Jesus is talking about the second coming. Okay, so we're towards the end, close to the end of 32, and he's talking about not just being crucified, but him coming back again. And he is saying, this is the point where we talked about where it's going to be just like Noah, the time of Noah. People are going to be married and giving away in marriage. They're going to be living like normal. They're not going to know anything's all that different. And all of a sudden, things are going to happen to them. And so picking up in Luke 17, verse 30, it will be just the same on the day that the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, let not the one who is on the housetop and whose goods are in the house go down to take them away. And likewise, let not the one who is in the field turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Okay, so. It's probably a little bit more than just turning back and looking to see what happened.
Yeah.
It is probably more of a longing, of a not wanting to leave, of remembering, oh, I left my grandma's good picture in the house.
I had so much fun back there, why do we have to leave?
Right, it was a whole lot more like that. And so she may have in effect turned back, not just turned back, but turned back and got hit by what ended up coming about. So Lot lost his wife. Now Abraham, I'm in verse 27. Now Abraham arose early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the valley. And he saw and behold, the smoke of the land ascend like the smoke of a furnace. Thus it came about when God destroyed the cities of the valley that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow. Sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived. Now, talking about,
Also, let me just say that Lot's wife didn't completely leave if she looked back.
Mhm.
It had to be a complete come away, come with me, come to me.
Right.
She was divided
right,
by
right,
looking back.
right. And you see, if we don't teach these lessons to the people, I mean, who knows when Jesus is going to come back, okay? But we of the church should be looking for and expecting it. It could be,
Oh, absolutely.
could be tonight, it could be tomorrow, it could be 1,000 years from now. Nobody knows. But if we're not teaching the people, then they're not going to be looking. And they're not going to be able to listen to the voice of the Lord when he says, get out of here. Come with me.
And each soul has to have it completely so that he knows you.
Okay, I'm going to go quickly through the rest of 19 and 20, just so we can move forward with some interesting stories. We were talking about Lot's two daughters. They might have been righteous. They were not. Because Lot goes up to the mountain. Finally, why did he go to the mountain? Why did he say, don't send me to the mountain? I want to go to Zoar. And then he goes to the mountain. It's Lot, okay? Who knows why? Theologians don't know why he did that. But he goes up in the mountain and the daughters suddenly decide, my husbands are gone. They're dead. I'm up in a mountain all alone. All we've got left is our father. So essentially, the daughters got the father drunk. The oldest one night, the youngest one the next night, and they got pregnant by their father. They were not righteous. They were not trusting in God. They were not waiting for God's fullness to be given. They were, again, creating an Ishmael, and they literally did, because the firstborn bore a son, and his name was Moab, which became the Moabites. Talking about the ites here. And the second one had a name, a son, called him Ben-Ami, became the father of the Ammonites. So here you've got the Moabites and the Ammonites coming from a incestuous, drunken relationship of girls not trusting God. Now, in their defense, were they taught anything from their father? No.
That's not.
Okay, in a culture where women were valued only for their ability to have children, where they were not taught to trust the Lord, where they were not taught any of those things. I mean, I think God took it probably a little bit easier on them because they didn't have a witness. All they had was their cultural influences, and they knew no better. Now, did I say how long it was going to be from the time that the Lord came to Abraham until Isaac was born? How long did we say?
Yeah.
A year, okay, all right. So, of course, the story of Lot and his daughters, that took, you know, that's just a side story here. But all of a sudden, Abraham, we get this story in verse 20, where Abraham journeys away from the land towards the land of the Negev, okay? So he goes into foreign territory. And we have another Abimelech. Now, Abimelech is not a name, it is a title, okay? So this is not the same Abimelech that was in Egypt. This is a different man, same title, because it means the ruler of this land. The land of the Negev, and he tries to settle there. And once again, he lies. Sarah's not my wife, Sarah's not my sister. This time, though, it's many, many years later, and he's not saying it because she's beautiful and this woman's going to want her. He's actually saying it because he's powerful and he's rich, and he's going into someone's territory. And that man could kill Abraham, take Sarah as his wife, thereby getting everything that Abraham had. So this was, again, self-preservation. I'm going to say that she's my sister. And Abimelech thinks that he's making a deal, an allegiance with now this powerful man who's coming with all these servants and these flocks, okay? All right, this is your sister. I'm going to marry your sister. So we're going to become kin. And now what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. And we'll live happy ever after until God, the Lord comes to Abimelech and said, don't you dare touch her, because you're going to be in big trouble if you touch her. And he's like, he said she's my sister. Yeah, well, he lied
Again.
again. And he goes back to Abraham and said, why did you do that? Why did you do that to us? And Abraham says, okay, because I feared that you would kill me because of my wife, that you would want what is mine and you take it. So God showed kindness once again, and Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male and female servants and restored Sarah, and Abraham prayed for Abimelech, and the Lord had actually shut all the wombs of everybody in this land because he had taken Sarah. And so the Lord, at the end of this chapter, the Lord restored Abimelech because of the prayer, and Abimelech was able to have children by his other people. But you know, Abraham just doesn't learn. Why did he even leave?
Now, wasn't Sarah 99 years old when she had, now she's bound to be 100 and some, but this time wasn't she?
We're all in the same year.
All the same, so she's
all-
still not.
She's still 99, but this is the point. All of this is happening, okay? You know, if God comes to you in a place where you know you meet God and says, a year from now, she's gonna have a baby.
Yeah.
Why are you gonna start traveling?
Good question.
You know? Yeah. So who knows? Who knows what he's thinking? Who
And,
knows why he's doing this?
and he kept digging his hole deeper.
Deeper and deeper, that's
Yeah.
right. But we will pick up next week, verse 21, where Isaac does.
For chapter.
Hmm?
21.
Chapter,
20.
chapter 21, where Isaac is born,
Okay,
okay? And we will go through. We will probably go through. Yeah, we'll go through 22. We'll have a lot to talk about in 22 when we talk about the offering of Isaac.
Up here at verse 12, it says, he says, besides, she was indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. So she was his
Half sister.
sister.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't really lying. He was just leaving out a real important purpose.
I mean, they married.
Real important point. And again, we have to understand Sarah's been barren, okay?
Mhm.
Because God's going to birth from her
Mhm.
the promise. So, yeah.
would
Yeah.
she have been pregnant during this time though? Or do we not know? Because it's
It
within
doesn't
that
really
year.
say, it begins
Yeah.
21. It begins 21 with the Lord took note of Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. it doesn't really say exactly where they were or in the time frame, you know?
Are we assuming that it happened normally?
Oh, it did happen normally, yeah. The only miraculous birth is Jesus. Yeah, so, you know, Abraham and Sarah had to know each other, and
Yeah.
9 months later,
She carried,
she carried for 9 months and the whole, yeah.
so she must have been great.
Mhm. Yeah, newly pregnant or getting pregnant as he's traveling around, that's right. Yep,
When we first started out, I was noticing my, of course, I don't remember about footnotes, but when we were first reading it. And, whenever the, men came to, when we looked at his 10 entries and saw the three people, or saw the people there. My Bible says, the unearthly identity of the three men is not apparent to Abraham. He bestows on them the same generous hospitality he might show any human visitor. He said he ran and bowed, and then it says, my Lord can mean, my Lord's spoken to one visitor on behalf of all three, or my Lord meaning God. The Hebrew text is vocalized to indicate the third possibility, but the first or second is more appropriate to the immediate situation, so. I don't know why mine says opposite.
But if it's
it does.
capitalized,
Huh.
if the word Lord is capitalized, that means it's in the world,
Well,
in the Bible.
actually, it could be true because, when he said, my Lord, he used the lowercase.
yeah.
Oh, it's lowercase.
It's lowercase, yeah, so it could be true.
Yeah.
It could be true that he did not
But
know.
it said in that time, but that's how they showed hospitality, that, you know, they went out and met everybody that came, that's how
Oh,
they
they
showed
always said, yes, it's definitely that they're
Like,
hospitality.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you never know when you're entertaining angels.
I know,
Um,
yeah,
but at some point he had to realize because,
I think
you know,
so,
he
too.
starts with this, you
Mhm,
know, who you are,
yeah,
you know, the righteous judge, because then he starts, then it starts being capitalized as he was talking to him, so. Yep. You're right.
did I've read Genesis and all, but I don't remember a lot, but does Abraham, after Isaac maybe is born, does he then kind of not keep lying and doing stuff like he did to Sarah before, you know, and stuff
Well, he pretty much,
leveled out?
yeah, fades, well, he fades in, basically,
Yeah.
he doesn't live too long, he's already old.
Yeah. But that just goes to
You don't know
show us that God is a forgiving God.
And that's the point. I mean, people talk about him being, you know, so mean and horrible, but I mean, over and over again, God is forgiving and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then why it came to my mind, it probably don't even make no sense to anybody but me, but was reading about, when he was talking to God, if there's 50, will you save? If there's 40, what was going to my mind? Like I said, don't relate a bit. It's just like people talking about Jesus dying, you know, will you die for 50? Jesus would have died for, if there wasn't but one person, he would have died for us if it wasn't but for one person. And why in the world that kept going through my mind, and I know it don't relate anything to this, but that kept going through my mind. It wouldn't make a difference if it was 50 or 1, he would still die for us.
right. That's a good, because again, that's the point, why when we're in intercession, we should not give up. We should not settle because Jesus died for even the one.
Mhm.
So we keep standing in the gap. Vicky, do you have any closing words of wisdom?
I remember when the women's group was going through Genesis, I kept thinking, why Abraham? Why did God choose Abraham? For all those reasons we just talked about. You know, he did this to Sarah, he did that, whatever.
Mhm,
And it's very humbling.
mhm.
It's Abraham did not earn God's love. He just
His
he had
brother.
a grain of faith and God chose him.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
And
They did.
we're
not-
all in the same
Sure.
situation.
Exactly,
That's right.
exactly.
Mhm.
And that's what makes these little side stories of what Abraham does so much
Mhm.
better. I mean, can anyone honestly say that they've never lied. I mean, I probably not to the extent of saying your spouse, your whatever, but we've all told.
Little white lies, as they say.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I love the hat. It's gorgeous.
Or we lie about how good our life is on Facebook.
Right. Yes, you're right.
People that don't read the Bible, and I'm saying a long time ago, when I didn't read the Bible. I thought Abraham and all the characters of the Bible, Daniel, David, and all that, I thought they were all perfect, you
Yeah,
know, when I.
perfectly righteous.
I thought they were, you know, they were God's people, you know, they didn't know until I started reading, you know. You hear about David and all this and, you read the Psalms and all that, and then even though all that, it said he was a man after God's own heart, you know. And then when you get to read and do all the jumping in there and all that, you think, well, they're just like us,
They're just
basically,
exactly like us.
and they're saved by grace.
Exactly. Exactly.
The same as Jesus's 12 disciples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
about,
Rowdy group.
yeah, it's normal, basic.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's close out prayer. Gracious Lord, thank you for your presence. Thank you for your power. Thank you for your word, which is a living word, enlivening our heart and mind as we grow closer to you. Lord, take us home safely. Keep all the critters off the road and just keep us safe as we can get home and until we come back together. And Lord, I thank you for these people. I truly, truly love each and every one of them. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
Bye-bye.
Okay.